Malik Carter pushed open the door of the coffee shop with one simple mission in mind: get through this blind date and finally get his mother off his back. After his marriage imploded, he'd sworn off dating. This, in his mind, was just another pointless setup. Then he saw her. At the corner table sat a woman in her mid-20s, dark hair pulled back, face tired but striking, and very, very pregnant. Malik stopped short. For a second, he thought he'd misread the table number. Before he could turn around, she rose to her feet and looked straight at him. "You're Malik, right?" she asked. "I'm Claire, your date." His thoughts stalled. This was supposed to be one of those bland, blind dates his mother arranged every few months. Show up, chat politely for half an hour, decline a second meeting, go home. Safe, predictable, forgettable. But there was nothing forgettable about Claire Bennett standing in front of him with a belly that had to be at least 7 months along. The oversized sweater she wore didn't even pretend to hide it. Her posture was straight, chin lifted, like she fully expected him to bolt and was daring him to do it. Malik opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He glanced around at the other tables, then back at her. Claire motioned to the chair across from her. "Please sit," she said. Her voice was steady. Her eyes weren't. There was a heaviness in them he recognized instantly. Not physical exhaustion, but the kind that came from carrying weight no one else could see. His first instinct was to walk out, text his mom about a fake work emergency, and leave this whole mess behind. But something held him there. Maybe it was the way Claire squared her shoulders in spite of everything. Maybe it was because, as a black single dad in his 30s, he knew that look too well. He'd seen it in the mirror 3 years earlier when his wife walked out and left him raising their son alone. He pulled out the chair and sat down. The coffee shop buzzed like every other Saturday afternoon. People hunched over laptops, friends laughing too loudly, the barista rattling off drink orders like a metronome. Malik focused on the noise just so he wouldn't have to stare at Claire and her swelling belly, because every normal icebreaker suddenly felt ridiculous. "I know what you're thinking," Claire said. She laced her fingers together on the table. No ring, no tan line, just bare hands and short, practical nails. "I really don't think you do," Malik replied. "You're wondering why I'm here," she continued. "Why I'd show up to a blind date looking like this." She glanced down at her stomach, then back up. "You're wondering if this is some kind of joke. Is it?" The question came out sharper than he meant. Her jaw tightened. "No, it's not a joke." Malik leaned back. He'd agreed to this date under pressure. His mom had been relentless. Every family dinner turned into a lecture about how he needed to move on, how his little boy needed aerial family, how hiding behind work wasn't a life. Last week, she'd finally dropped an ultimatum. Either he showed up to this blind date, or she would stop watching his son on weekends. It was emotional blackmail, and he'd given in. Now, sitting across from a very pregnant stranger, he wished he'd called her bluff. "Look," Malik said carefully, "I don't know what your situation is, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. My mom set this up. She didn't mention that I'm pregnant?" Claire cut in. "I'm sure she didn't. My family didn't mention it either when they arranged this for me." Malik blinked. "Your family arranged this?" "Yeah." Claire's tones was flat, like she was reading off a receipt. "My aunt knows your mother from some church group. She decided we'd be a good match." "Because," he prompted. "Because apparently the best way to fix the scandal of me being pregnant and unmarried is to throw me at a respectable man and pray he sticks." She reached for the water glass on the table, taking a long sip. Her hand trembled slightly as she set it down. "I didn't want to come, but they gave me the same choice I'm guessing you got. Show up or deal with consequences." Something shifted in Malik's chest. He understood consequences. He understood family pressure. He understood what it felt like to have everyone treating your life like a problem to be solved. 3 years ago, when his wife left, his own family acted like his story was over. They tried to shove him towards new relationships before he could even breathe. His grief had been an inconvenience. "So, we're both here under duress," Malik said. "Seems like it," Claire answered. Silence settled over them. Not the easy kind, but the brittle, awkward kind where both people were trying to decide if they should cut and run. Malik glanced at the door. He could still leave, apologize, and disappear. Claire would probably be relieved. She looked like she wanted to vanish just as badly as he did. But his feet stayed planted. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the memory of being judged for something he couldn't control. Maybe it was the way her shoulders looked like they were the only thing holding her up. "How far along are you?" he asked. It was blunt, too blunt, but the question came out anyway. 7 months, Claire said. One hand moved instinctively to her belly, a protective reflex she probably didn't even notice. "It's a girl." Malik nodded, unsure what response made sense. Congratulations felt wrong, so did "I'm sorry." "And the father?" he asked, and instantly wished he hadn't. "He's not in the picture," Claire said. Her expression hardened. "He made that clear when I told him." "I'm sorry," Malik said quietly. "Don't be." Her voice was sharp, but underneath he heard the fracture. "I'm better off without him." She was trying to convince herself as much as him. Malik knew that tone by heart. "I've got a son," he said suddenly. He hadn't planned to share that, but the words slipped out. "He's 5. His mom left when he was 2. It's just been me and him since." Claire studied him, a flicker of surprise and maybe relief passing through her eyes. "So, you get it?" "Yeah," he said, "I get it." The tension between them loosened a notch. Not gone, but transformed. Less like a standoff, more like two soldiers sharing the same trench. A waitress appeared beside them with a notepad. Her eyes flicked to Claire's belly, then to Malik, then back to her pad with professional blankness. Malik wondered how many times Claire had watched someone do that in the last 7 months. "What can I get you?" the waitress asked. "Just coffee, black," Malik said. "Decaf latte, please," Claire added. The waitress nodded and walked away. Claire traced little circles on the table with her fingertip. Malik watched her for a moment, then asked, "So, what now?" "What do you mean?" she said. "I mean, we showed up. Technically, we did what our families wanted, but I'm guessing neither of us plans to pretend this is some grand love story waiting to happen." Claire gave a small, humorless huff. "No, I don't want to waste your time." "And I don't want to waste yours," Malik replied. That should have been it. He should have stood up, shaken her hand, and politely ended things. But he stayed seated. She didn't move either. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said. "Sure." "Why did you stay?" she asked quietly. "When you saw me, you could have walked out. Most guys would have." Malik thought about lying, saying something noble. Instead, he sighed. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe because I know how it feels to be judged for something you can't control. Or because you looked like you needed someone to sit down and not run." Her eyes shone, but she didn't let the tears fall. She straightened her spine instead. "Thank you," she murmured. "For what?" "For not leaving." The waitress returned with their drinks. Malik wrapped his hands around the mug, grateful for the heat and the distraction. Claire sipped her latte, wincing as the foam brushed her lip. Malik made a choice then. It wasn't wise. It would almost definitely complicate his life. But he made it anyway. "Listen," he said, "we don't have to pretend this is some big romantic thing. But if you need someone to talk to, someone who actually understands this single-parent mess, I can be that." Claire studied him like she was checking for hidden strings. "Why would you do that?" "Because 3 years ago I needed someone like that," Malik said. "And I didn't have anybody." She held his gaze for a long beat, then nodded. Okay, he echoed. They weren't dating. They weren't falling in love. But something tiny and fragile had formed between them, like the first thin thread of trust stretched between two people who had every reason not to trust anyone. They stayed longer than either of them expected. Their drinks cooled. The afternoon crowd thickened. To Malik's surprise, he felt himself relax. Once the initial shock faded, Claire was easy to talk to. She didn't ask him to fix her life or play hero. She just listened and shared pieces of her own situation. She didn't expect him to be anything more than a tired black single dad who worked too much and loved his kid. That's rare, he thought. My family won't let me breathe, Claire said after a comfortable pause. She dragged her finger around the rim of her empty cup. They act like this baby is the worst thing that ever happened to them. Not to me. To them. Malik understood that twist all too well. When his wife left, his parents treated it like he'd failed them personally. They didn't care that she cheated or that she walked out without looking back. All that mattered was how it looked to other people. What do they want you to do? He asked. Get married, she said bitterly. Immediately, to anyone respectable who'll have me. They keep saying, think of the shame. What will people say? My aunt already set up 3 blind dates this month. You're number 3. How'd the first 2 go? Malik asked. One guy stood up and walked out as soon as he saw me, Claire said, her mouth twisting. The other lasted 10 minutes and spent the whole time lecturing me about responsibility and morals. Like I don't already know I messed up. Like I'm not terrified every day about doing this alone. You're not messing up, Malik said. You're just stuck in a hard spot. That's different. My family doesn't see it that way, she replied. To them, having a baby without a husband is worse than murder. They keep talking about how I've disgraced them, how I've ruined their good name at church. My mom can't look at me without crying. Her hand drifted back to her belly, that same instinctive shielding gesture. She acts like this baby is punishment instead of a person, she whispered. Anger flared in Malik's chest. At her family, at every person who'd made her feel like she was some stain to hide. When I first became a single dad, he said, his voice low and even, people treated me like I was broken. At the playground, moms would look at me like I didn't belong there. Half pity, half suspicion. Like a black man alone with a toddler had to be some kind of problem, or like there had to be something wrong with me if my wife walked away. Claire really looked at him then, eyes locked on his. How did you deal with it? She asked. Badly, at first, Malik admitted. I got defensive, then I stopped going anywhere. I skipped family gatherings because I was tired of everybody asking if I was dating yet. Like that was the fix. Like another woman would magically solve everything. He lifted his empty mug and turned it in his hands, the weight grounding him. Eventually I realized I didn't owe anyone an explanation, he said. My life belonged to me and my son. That's it. That must have taken a lot of strength, Claire said softly. It took a lot of anger first, he said with a faint smile, then a lot of exhaustion. Strength came after. She nodded slowly as if she recognized the road he'd walked. Maybe because she was standing at the beginning of it. Do you ever get lonely? She asked. Her voice was small, almost embarrassed. He could have lied, tossed out some tough solo hero line, but she'd been honest with him. She deserved honesty back. Every day, Malik said. Not because I need to be with someone, just doing everything alone is heavy. Making every decision. No one to talk to when my son's asleep and the house is quiet. That kind of lonely. Claire's eyes shone again. Yeah, she whispered. That kind. They fell silent. Around them, life rolled on. A couple 2 tables over laughed at something on a phone. Teenagers argued about a video game. The barista called out Jessica for someone at the counter. The world sounded normal. Malik and Claire sat in their own little bubble. Can I ask you something else? Claire said, staring down at her hands. Of course. Does it get easier? She asked, raising a kid alone. He wanted to say yes, to hand her hope wrapped in a bow, but he knew how empty lies felt when reality hit. Some days get easier, he said slowly. The logistics get smoother. You find routines. You learn skills you never thought you'd need. But the weight of being the only one responsible for a whole human, that doesn't really get lighter. You just get stronger carrying it. Claire soaked that in. She didn't look crushed. She looked relieved, like someone had finally told her the truth instead of handing her sugar-coated cliches. Thank you for not lying, she said. You're going to be okay, Malik said. He meant it. He could see the stubborn core in her, the same one he'd leaned on when no one else showed up. I hope so, she whispered. The moment stretched. Something unspoken passed between them. Not romance, not yet, but recognition. 2 people realizing their paths had been running side by side in different neighborhoods. Then Claire's face changed. Her shoulders tightened. Her eyes flicked over Malik's shoulder. He turned slightly. At the table behind them, 2 women sat hunched together, talking in hushed tones that weren't really hushed at all. One kept glancing at Claire's belly. The other had her phone on the table, screen down, thumb resting near the camera. Just ignore them, Malik murmured. But Claire was already shrinking into herself. Her whole posture closed in. She crossed her arms over her chest like she could make herself smaller, invisible. The whispers grew bolder. Can you believe that? One woman said, just loud enough for their words to drift over. Showing up to a date like that. Desperate, probably, the other replied, trying to find someone to clean up her mess. Malik's jaw clenched. His hands tightened around his mug. He wanted to turn around right then, but Claire's fingers suddenly closed around his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Don't," she whispered. "It'll only make it worse." "They shouldn't be talking about you like that," he said. "They're not saying anything I haven't heard," Claire said flatly. That hollow tone cut deeper than the gossip. Other people were looking now. An older man at the counter shot them a disapproving glare. A couple by the window exchanged a loaded glance and shook their heads. The coffee shop, so anonymous a few minutes ago, suddenly felt like a courtroom where everyone had already reached a verdict. "Oh, poor guy," one of the women behind them said, not even pretending to be discreet anymore. "Probably got tricked into this. She's probably one of those women who baby trap men." Claire flinched like she'd been slapped. That was it. "Excuse me," Malik said, turning in his chair. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. The women looked up, faces arranged in fake innocence. "Did you have something you wanted to say to us directly?" he asked. "We're just having a private conversation," the one with the phone replied, lips curving in a smug little smile. "Doesn't sound that private," Malik said. "We're entitled to our opinions," the other woman snapped, the self-righteousness in her tone sounding like every comment section he'd ever regretted reading. "Opinions about strangers you know nothing about," he said, his voice sharpening. "We know enough," the first woman said. She jerked her chin toward Claire without actually looking at her. "We know she's trying to trap some guy into raising somebody else's kid." Claire pushed her chair back so suddenly it screeched across the floor. Conversations around them cut off. Heads turned. "I need to go," she said, her voice cracking. She grabbed her purse with shaking hands and headed for the door. "Claire, wait," Malik said, getting to his feet, but she was already halfway there. She didn't run, but she moved quickly, like she was trying to outrun the burn in her eyes. The room went quiet, thick with judgment. Some people looked away, embarrassed to be caught staring. Others watched openly, expressions sliding from pity to disgust to smug satisfaction. The two women behind them wore nearly identical looks of vindication, like they'd accomplished something righteous. Something inside Malik broke, not loudly, not dramatically, just a clean snap. He thought of Claire walking out with that shame carved into her, going home to a family that already treated her like a scandal. Sitting alone later, 7 months pregnant with a little girl, believing she deserved the way strangers talked about her. He thought of 3 years of swallowing his own anger and pretending people's opinions didn't matter. He was done. He didn't waste another second on the women. They didn't deserve his words. Malik followed Claire. She'd reached the door, one hand on the handle, the other pressed over her mouth like she was holding everything in by sheer force. "Claire," he said softly. "I'm fine," she whispered, shaking her head. "I just need to go." You don't have to do this alone," he said. "Yes, I do. That's the whole point." Her voice cracked on the word alone. "Everyone knows it. Everyone can see it. I'm the girl who got pregnant and got dumped. Now I'm so desperate I show up to blind dates praying someone's dumb enough to take me." "That's not what this is," Malik said firmly. "Then what is it?" she asked, spinning to face him. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She didn't bother wiping them away. "What am I doing here, Malik? What are we doing?" He didn't have a neat answer. Not one that would satisfy the peanut gallery inside that cafe. But he had a choice. He could let her walk away and carry that humiliation home. Let those women win. Let the world keep grinding her down until she believed she was everything they said she was. Or he could do something. Behind them, Malik could still feel all those eyes watching through the glass, still hear the ghost of whispers. "Wait here," he said. His voice was calm, but there was no give in it. "What are you doing?" Claire asked, fear and something like hope flickering in her eyes. "Something I should have done 3 years ago," he said, "when people judged me." Before she could stop him, Malik turned and walked back inside. Every set of eyes followed him. The two women sat up straighter, smugness written all over their faces. They probably thought he was returning to distance himself from Claire, to explain he hadn't known she was pregnant, to save face. They were wrong. Malik stopped dead center in the cafe where everyone could see him. The barista paused mid-pour. Conversations faded into silence. He looked at the two women, then at the older man at the counter, then at the couple by the window, and finally at everyone else who'd stared and judged without knowing a thing. "That woman you were all talking about," he said, voice clear and steady, carrying easily to every corner of the room. "She's my wife." Silence slammed down, real silence, the kind that made the air feel heavier. "And that baby she's carrying?" Malik continued, hands loose at his sides, gaze unwavering. "That's my daughter." One of the women opened her mouth, then shut it. Color rushed to her face. "So, if you've got something you want to say about her," Malik said, his voice dropping lower without losing its edge, "you're saying it about my family, to my face, right now." No one moved. The woman with the phone stared at her lap. The older man at the counter suddenly needed to inspect his coffee. The couple by the window studied the table with intense fascination. Malik let the moment stretch. Let the discomfort settle in. Let them all sit with what they'd done. "That's what I thought," he said finally. He turned and walked back to the door, heart pounding but steps steady. Claire was still there, hand on the handle, frozen. Her cheeks were wet, but something in her expression had changed. The shame had drained away, replaced by something raw and overwhelmed and grateful. Malik held the door open. "Come on, let's get out of here." She nodded and stepped outside. He followed. Behind them, the cafe remained silent. No whispers, no snide comments, no phones angled for a picture. Out on the street, life roared on. Cars honked, people talked on their phones. A bus rumbled past, leaving a trail of exhaust. The world didn't know or care what had just happened inside that coffee shop. Claire stopped on the sidewalk and turned toward him. Her hands were shaking. "Why did you do that?" she asked, voice barely audible over the traffic. Malik shoved his hands into his pockets. The adrenaline was sliding away, leaving that hollow space it always left after you did something you couldn't undo. "Because they had no right to treat you like that," he said. "You didn't deserve it." "You didn't have to lie for me," she said. "You didn't know me an hour ago." "I didn't lie," Malik said automatically, then sighed. "Okay, yeah, I did, but they earned that, and you deserved somebody standing up for you." Claire pressed her fingers to her eyes, trying to catch the tears. Her breathing came in shaky bursts. "I don't even know you," she said. "You don't owe me anything. You could have just let me leave." "Yeah," he said, "I could have." "So why didn't you?" she whispered. He thought of all the times he'd bitten his tongue while people took cheap shots at him as a single black dad. All the sideways looks, all the whispered assumptions, all the times he'd decided not to make a scene because it was easier to stay small. "Because I spent 3 years being the guy who keeps his head down," Malik said quietly, "letting people say whatever they wanted and telling myself it didn't matter. I hated it. I hated feeling like I had to swallow every judgment because my life didn't fit what they thought it should look like." Claire dropped her hands. Her eyes were red but focused. "You walked in there today expecting the worst," he said. "You expected me to walk out. You expected people to judge you. And you were right. Most of that happened. But you didn't deserve any of it. And I'm tired of watching people get treated like they're less than human just because life got messy." "You're a good man," Claire said softly. "I'm not," Malik said. "I'm just done being a coward." They stood there as people streamed past. A mom with 2 kids in tow, an elderly couple walking arm in arm, a guy on a bike weaving through traffic. No one stopped, no one knew. Claire hugged her arms around herself. The sun was dipping, shadows stretching across the sidewalk. The temperature had dropped. She didn't have a jacket. "I should go," she said, but she didn't move. "Oh, you need a ride?" Malik asked. "No, my car's around the corner. She trailed off, then started again. "Thank you. I don't know how to say it properly, but thank you." Malik pulled out his phone without thinking. He opened a new contact and held it out to her. "Put your number in," he said. She stared at the phone. "Why?" "Because maybe you'll need someone to talk to," he said. "Someone who gets it. And maybe I do too." You don't have to do this out of pity," Claire said. "It's not pity," he said. And it wasn't. What he felt looking at her wasn't sadness or superiority. It was recognition, respect, a strange solidarity between 2 people who'd survived things they shouldn't have had to. "I don't know what it is," he admitted, "but it's not pity." Claire took the phone. Her fingers moved slowly over the screen as she typed in her number. She handed it back. Malik saved the contact, then sent a quick text so she'd have his. If you ever want to talk, he said, call me or text, whatever. No pressure, no expectations, just if you need it. Her phone buzzed with his message. She glanced down at it, then back up at him. What if I do call? She asked. Then we'll talk, he said. And then what? She pressed. I don't know, Malika answered honestly. I haven't thought that far. A small, crooked smile tugged at her mouth. It was sad and real at the same time. Me neither, she said. They stood together in the fading light, neither sure what this was. Maybe it was the beginning of something. Maybe it would just be a strange story they both remembered years from now about the blind date that went sideways in the middle of a coffee shop. But something had changed. Malik could feel it. The high walls Claire had built around herself were a little lower now. His own walls, the ones he'd stacked stone by stone after his marriage collapsed, had new cracks running through them. I really should go, Claire said again, this time with the weight of a goodbye. Okay, Malik said quietly. She turned to leave, then paused and looked back. Malik, she called. Yeah? That thing you said inside, she said. About me being your wife, about the baby being yours. She held his eyes. It felt real. Like, maybe that's how it's supposed to feel. Someone claiming me instead of being ashamed of me. His chest tightened. You're not something to be ashamed of, he said. I know that now, Claire replied softly. Because of you. Before he could answer, she turned away and walked around the corner toward her car. Then she was gone. The street carried on as if nothing had shifted. Cars rolled by, lights changed. A siren wailed faintly in the distance. The world didn't pause for them. Malik stood there for a moment longer, then looked down at his phone. Claire's name and number glowed on the screen. Proof the afternoon had actually happened. He didn't know if she'd ever call. He didn't know if he wanted her to. He didn't know if he was ready to let anyone into his life when he was still busy trying to keep it from falling apart. But he knew one thing. He was done staying silent. He was done watching people get torn apart by cruelty and pretending it wasn't his business. Done acting like his own hurt meant he had nothing to offer anyone else. Malik started walking toward his car. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother asking how the date went. He stared at the message. How exactly did you explain that the blind date she'd set up ended with you standing in the middle of a cafe claiming a pregnant stranger as your wife? He decided that conversation could wait. For now, he walked. The evening air was cool against his warm brown skin. Somewhere behind him, Claire was driving home. Somewhere ahead, his little boy was waiting for him. And somewhere between those 2 points, in a noisy coffee shop and on a crowded sidewalk, 2 lonely people who'd expected absolutely nothing had walked away with something small and fragile and maybe, just maybe, worth protecting. Sometimes the most unexpected thing wasn't the pregnancy. It wasn't the gossip. It wasn't the blind date. Sometimes it was the moment a stranger chose kindness over comfort. The moment someone decided another person's dignity mattered more than the risk of being embarrassed. The moment 2 separate lives, both wrecked in different ways, brushed against each other and recognized something familiar. Sometimes that was enough. Not a guaranteed happy ending, not a promise, just enough to make tomorrow feel a little less impossible than today. Malik slid into his car and sat there for a second before starting the engine. As he pulled away from the curb, his phone rested in the cup holder, Claire's new contact tucked inside it like a quiet question. He didn't know if it would ever ring with her name. He hoped it would. And that thought terrified him just as much as it warmed him. The world kept spinning. Traffic lights flipped from green to red and back again. Somewhere his son was waiting for bedtime stories and hugs. And somewhere out there, a pregnant woman who had walked into a coffee shop expecting nothing was driving home with the knowledge that, for once, somebody had chosen to stand beside her instead of walking away.